I want to go through the timeline of what's happened with Iran under the Trump administration, because every time you hear this argument that Iran is the aggressor, understand that that is not the case. Now I'm going to start this off by saying the obvious, which is in 2015, one of the best things that Obama was able to accomplish was the Iran nuclear deal, which made sure, and it wasn't just between the United States and Iran, it was between the United States, Iran, Russia, China, and European countries, right? And so there were ways to check in to make sure that Iran was no longer enriching its uranium. There were ways to prove that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. It was the best deal to prevent Iran from building a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump gets elected, and what does he do? So let's start with May 8th of 2018. Trump withdraws from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. That is the Iran nuclear deal, right? So once you do that, you're basically telling Iran, we've pulled out, that this deal doesn't exist anymore. If you want, you can go ahead and enrich your uranium, right? And that's essentially what they ended up doing, but there's more details, so let's go further. August 7th, 2018, Trump announces first round of sanctions against Iran. November 5th, 2018, Trump announces second round of sanctions against Iran. April 8th, 2019, Trump administration designates Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a foreign terrorist organization, something that's unprecedented and does what? Further devolves or further deteriorates the relationship between the United States and Iran and makes it incredibly difficult to renegotiate a nuclear deal, which is what Trump claimed he wanted.
Yeah.
Let's go further. By the way, who's the aggressor so far? May 5th, 2019, John Bolton announced the US was sending an aircraft carrier strike group and Air Force bombers to the Middle East against Iran. May 8th of 2019, Iran announces it is preparing to increase enriched uranium production. Trump implements sanctions against Iran's steel and mining sectors, okay? So look, at this point, what's amazing, Trump pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal on May 8th of 2019. It wasn't until a year later that Iran was like, okay, I mean, we've been trying to comply with this even though the United States pulled out. But at this point, I mean, these sanctions are crippling us. The other countries that were part of this deal have been coerced by the United States government to stop doing business with us. And so we're left with no choice. Let's go to May 14th of 2019, because remember, the United States is engaged in all sorts of nefarious actions abroad. Yemen's Houthi rebels allegedly attack major oil pipeline in Saudi Arabia. US blamed Iran for the attack, but Tehran denies involvement. We talked about this story. The US government has still failed to provide any evidence to show that Iran was behind that oil tanker attack, right? And as we know, the United States is assisting Saudi Arabia in the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen, which is leading to a genocide of the Yemeni people. Let's give you more. June 13th of 2019, US accuses Iran of attacking Japanese and Norwegian oil tankers while Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited Iran. Iran denied involvement. Again, there's been no proof of what the US has accused Iran of. June 17th of 2019, Pentagon deploys 1,000 additional troops to the Middle East. Iran said it was 10 days from surpassing the limit set by the nuclear deal that Trump pulled out of on its stockpile of low enriched uranium. Again, I mean, I know this is super detailed. And by the way, there's a bunch of other stuff, like little sanctions here and there that I haven't even included in the timeline. But where is the aggression coming from, guys? Like, let's take responsibility for what our government is doing. There's only so many times you can punch someone in the face before expecting them to punch back. June 20th of 2019, US drone shot down by Iran. Iran said that the drone was flying in Iranian airspace while the US claimed it was flying over international waters. June 21st of 2019, Trump calls off an airstrike against Iran. Okay, so he had called for an airstrike, and then 10 minutes before it was supposed to happen, he called it off. June 22nd of 2019, Iran responds to US threats by ordering the execution of a US military contractor who was convicted of spying for the CIA. By the way, no one in the US press talks about that story. June 29th of 2019, US deploys F-22 stealth fighters to defend American forces and interests. And the list goes on and on. On December 27th, a rocket attack on an Iraqi military base in Kirkuk killed a US contractor contractor and wounded several U.S. service members and Iraqi personnel. The U.S.-led coalition against ISIL did not specify who might be responsible, but U.S. officials later blamed Kataib Hezbollah, an Iran-backed militia, for the attack. 2 days later, on December 29th, the U.S. military carried out defensive strikes on sites in Iraq and Syria belonging to Kataib Hezbollah that Washington said were in retaliation for the killing of a U.S. contractor. Iraqi security and militia sources said at least 25 fighters were killed and 55 others wounded. Following that attack, that was when protesters stormed the US embassy in Iraq. And the way the media reports it makes it seem like the story or the timeline starts right there. Oh, they attacked our US embassy. Yeah, but why? Why? People don't just randomly attack embassies. Okay, so we need to think about how our actions lead to these types of repercussions. It's about strategy, okay? It's not saying or making excuses for the bad actors abroad. It's about thinking about the best way to de-escalate the situation, and Trump has consistently done the opposite, mostly because he can't handle Obama's legacy and he wants to destroy it in any way he can. He thought he could negotiate a better nuclear deal. If this is the way he goes about negotiating deals, he's a terrible deal maker. But we already knew that by the 6 bankruptcies that he went through.
Comrades, a question. How many more of your young men must die in this war before the capitalists who started it are satisfied? Before they have enough profit from building the tanks, the guns, the shells? How many? 50,000, a million, 2 million? I say none. I say stop the war now!